Where were the trials at?
Sydney,
Thinking.
Randwick.
Yep.
So, hey guys, we're just letting everyone come in. So, welcome aboard. Might get underway quickly. Oh, it's good. Good numbers early. 20 people already. Few winners from the last few days, Robbie. So we better give them a shout out. A couple
Yeah,
with their first winners.
there is some good winners. Yeah, first timers. So a lot of them were in judo and Verdad, weren't they, Corey?
Yep. Yep. So those two horses gave us a few brand new winners in the stable, which was nice. So congratulations to those of them that are online. And
Yep.
obviously those of you that have young horses that haven't raced yet, I'm sure your time will come pretty soon because we've got some nice ones.
Yeah, absolutely. We have.
Well, we might kick it off straight away. So spring is in the air. So Matt, you're obviously a lover of the Cranbourne Winters. You've been quite vocal about how much you enjoy those since you moved from South Africa. But other than the horse racing, what's exciting about the spring?
Definitely the warmer weather. That's We had a little bit of a taste of it on the weekend and during the week, so you kind of boost your energy and your mood levels. And all the sport that's on offer now is fantastic. So obviously the racing is what we live and breathe for, but just to be outdoors yesterday in the pool and having a good time is fantastic.
Now, the spring is also in the air on the track, Robbie, and the biggest race of the spring carnival is the Melbourne Cup. And obviously, that's the one, the holy grail that everyone would love to be in. And I mean, there's still a lot to happen in the meantime, but we do have one horse that's looking like he ticks those boxes as a Melbourne Cup horse.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been singing his praises for a while, Aberfeldy boy, but coming off the back of his three Derby runs that were sensational, Victoria, Adelaide, and he was unlucky in Queensland. So he wintered up there and he's come back a bigger, stronger horse. And he was very good on Saturday, as Matt and I were very elated in how he ran. And that performance was terrific for a horse kicking off. So he's going to go down the Val and declare sort of program and hopefully have the same result.
Yep. And Matt, I remember speaking to you about a month ago about whether obviously we felt like we should have won two derbies last year. And I said to you, "Oh, do we have any Derby horses this year?" And it was a bit early at that stage, and nothing had jumped out and said I'm a Derby horse. But in the last week, there's two that have said I might be the one.
Certainly, Corey, and that's the benefit of having a lot of young unraced ones is that they can jump out of the ground at any time. And I think Shooter was very exciting on Sunday, and he's got the right attitude. He's very, very laid back. And Verdad during the week obviously was super impressive, and his father Justify won up to 2,400 meters on the dirt. So anything's possible, and they are racing at the right time of the year and in good form. So if they can follow in the same footsteps as Aberfeldy Boy, we'll be ultra excited.
And Robbie, we work in a crazy industry because Enshuto's pedigree is 1,000 meter sprinter out of 1,000 meter sprinter, yet he looks like a dead set stayer in his work.
Yeah, that's very true. It's they don't always go to the pedigree page, but he does have his mum's a half to an Elstrom horse that Gaia Waterhouse trained that looked like getting. He was touted as one of the early Derby favourites, and he went amiss. But so there's something in the family there. But yeah, you're right. He's got the build of a good, strong sprinter, but he's got the attitude of a stayer. So we'll go with him.
Yep. Now, apologies to anyone whose horses are not on this list because I just flicked it on there before we came on the webinar just to jog my own memory. But there's a few there. But the main reason to put some horses' names on the screen, and this is probably for yourself, Matt, to answer, is I remember when I came on board around the same time the partnership started, and I remember going into that spring, we basically had all our hopes on Hal Vorsen, and we were hoping King Magnus went to at the next level, and obviously he went on to win the Cranbourne Cup. But going into the spring, we had Hal Vorsen as a spring horse, and then we had a couple of others that needed to stand up. Now, going into this spring, it's pretty exciting, isn't it, when you think that there's a whole heap of horses I haven't even listed there that are haven't hit the track yet and look exciting as well.
Yeah, Corey, it's making our job a lot easier, and it's what we've been working towards the last 3 years, is building up a big army and a big team to attack these racing carnivals. And you can just even see it by the amount of winners we've had this month in the last 6 weeks, August and September, is that we're starting to produce winners consistently all year round. And we're able to, target big racing carnivals like this with competitive horses. So the 3 years we've spent, buying at the sales is starting to pay off, and it's a big thank you to all our owners and clients and supporters out there, because without them we wouldn't be in a situation like this, and it's really a privilege.
Yeah. And Robbie, you've been at Cranbourne for many years, and we've spoken about this on the webinars before, but there were years gone by where you'd have a trial at Cranbourne and win it by 5 lengths, and then you'd go to the races and you wouldn't measure up. Whereas now, with all the big trainers and everyone at Cranbourne, those Cranbourne trials and jump outs are so hot that when you win one, you've got a really good horse. And we seem to be winning a few at the moment, and it gets us a bit excited.
Yeah, and that's true. I mean, when you've got competitors that we're up against now, it gives you a really good yardstick. So the trials at Cranbourne basically just dominate racing.com now, because they are the yardstick for everyone to compare performances with when collecting data going into first up runs or debut runs, etc. So yeah, to have horses competing well is a really good sign that they're in for a good campaign, and that's been the case.
Yeah. And obviously, those that are online watching, if you wanted to ask any questions, there's the Q&A button there. If you ask any questions there, you get them in as early as you can. I'll ask those and try and get the boys to answer. So tonight we're really just having a bit of a chat about how the stable's going, how it's progressing, and that sort of thing. But Matt, one for you. Up there on the screen, is there a horse in the stable that's not on that list and hasn't been seen yet that people might go, where did that come from?
Oh, well, there's a lot of 2-year-olds, that we've purchased at the sale, Corey, that are very exciting. A lovely Zusane filly in the yard at the moment that looks quite sharp and forward. So yeah, I think it's hard to say single out one that hasn't made its debut. Even the nice Justify filly at home hasn't raced. 3-year-old filly. So there's a few, Corey. I don't want to single out one, but probably the most exciting horses are the 2-year-olds that we bought this year. Blue Points, he's an exciting sire. He had his first trial winner this morning in Sydney. So there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I might just get to the next one. So, Robbie, you'll notice that I'm wearing a Piarata hat.
Yes.
So I took a share in the Zusane filly that Matt's talking about. So fingers crossed that goes to plan. But I'm wearing the Piarata hat, and I was hoping you'd say why you're wearing it. And I'd say, well, I'm pleased you asked that, because Piarata actually had a trial winner this morning in Sydney. And as we know, those Sydney trials are watched a fair bit. And the only 3 first season sires to have winners at the trials this morning were Blue Point. He had 2.
Yes, correct.
Winners. Yep. Piarata had a winner.
Yep.
And Tassort had a winner. So considering we bought 3 Blue Points and we bought a couple of Piaratas, we certainly were looking at the right first season sires.
Yeah, we're very, very smart. It looks like we're very smart anyway, buying the Blue Points, because I think he's had 30 individual winners or something. He's the hottest stallion there is. And
yeah, 30 individual, 35 wins, 3 stakes winners in the UK. Rob Crabtree actually mentioned that Scampy, who got the second fastest time and second fastest win this morning in the trials. Rob Crabtree, who's the owner of Magnus and also has some horses in the stable, he actually bred Scampy, so he's a bit excited about the Blue Points as well, and he's also in one that we have.
Well, when you see what he's doing on the track and the type of horses that he's produced, long before a saddle went on any of the young ones when we bought this Blue Point in front of us on the screen now, as you can see, he's just a magnificent looking horse with a big nostril, well-balanced body, and got that depth of girth and everything like his dad. So, as we're walking around the sales, Matt and I kept saying, geez, we could have a stable full of these Blue Points, and that's how they're reflected in their performances. So to see him win 2 trials this morning, I think that's just going to be a given of the future, so we're very fortunate that we got a few of them.
Yeah, I also think it'll be interesting, because I think even with the ongoing costs, the price inclusive of all the ongoings will look very cheap when we get to the yearling sales this year if he keeps going the way he is, Blue Point. We won't be able to buy them at that price next year.
Well, I think they sold up to 700, might have been a bit more, 800 or something last year without having a saddle on them. Now that they're basically a proven sire, the way he's performed in Europe and the way that, his pedigree's performed here, hence the reason everyone was bullish about him and the way they've stepped out in the trials this morning. I know we'll have to really increase our budget to buy them next year. So we're fortunate we got them this year, that's for sure.
The other thing, Matt, speaking of trials, we had some good jump outs this morning as well by a couple of our horses we have big plans for. So, I mean, Hal Vorson himself, the old stager, he looked pretty sharp this morning.
Yeah, Hal Vorson could have been mistaken for a 2-year-old this morning. He was full of energy and he really loved his trial. You could see how enthusiastic he was. He was hard against the steel. Jamie Mott took him through his paces and he was very upbeat about the horse. And it's really nice to see him thriving. He always runs well, fresh. So, he could be heading to the races very soon and bring us a bit of joy. Fission, it's no secret that he's a character, to put it nicely, and he was excellent this morning as well, and he's a city winner, so he'll be peaking at the right time of the year to be hopefully picking up a few big races. And then Sarasana, I thought she was excellent. She's got good form, early form in December, beating Oberos, who's come out and won or ran second in a very close race at Caulfield, I think it was. So her form's good. And then horses like Magic Mogul, who's also run well in the city, trialing really well at the moment. So lots of horses coming through the ranks at the right time of the year, and hopefully they put their hands up and give us a bit of joy over the next month.
Yeah. Is Fission still the same character, or has he come back a different character?
What do they say? Leopard doesn't change its spots.
Yeah, he's still got all of his spots, hasn't he, Matt?
Yeah.
He does run quite fast. He's my favourite horse.
Luckily for him.
Yeah. All right, I've got some comments here. So Craig McGill, Robbie, he's pretty happy with Hal this morning. You'd be buzzing about Hal as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Craig will have some pep in his step, after watching what he's seen of him getting fit and then trialling this morning. So Matt's answered all those questions, but I think everyone that's in the ownership would be pretty upbeat about Hal Vorson.
Now, Esme Ryan has a question here, which hopefully it's not still too much of a sore point for you, Matthew, but I might give it to you. But she says, do we have any Everest contenders? And I'd probably say we did until Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a bit of a pipe dream for a horse like Najim, but at this stage, you probably don't have an Everest contender. That's looking like an extremely strong race. We obviously dream of competing in a race like that, but yeah, at this stage, we don't have any realistic competitors, that's for sure.
Craig was just asking if you think Hal will come up early this prep, Robbie.
Possibly. We've always held him back until Cup week because of various reasons. A lot of them have been he doesn't like preparing on the wet. But if he comes to hand, he could possibly look at the Caulfield Sprint, 1,000-metre race there, or just have a little breather in between his fitness trials because he's an old horse that's come off a lengthy rest. We could just take our time with him and then produce him in Oaks Day, the race that he traditionally steps out in.
Yep. And you recognise that horse in the clip, Robbie?
Absolutely, our Exceedance colt. And he's come on well too because he's a December foal. So since the sales, he's really grown up and starting to really take shape now. So being out of half the Glenfiddich and just has his whole look about him. We're quite excited about this one. So he's a really, really good colt.
I didn't tell you who that was. I was hoping you got it wrong, but no, it was a good test. All right. Anyway, Matt, statistics, you love them. And we've always sort of not brought them up too much, but we're running at 30% in our last 90 days. So let's talk about stats.
Yeah, well, stats don't lie, and it's a wonderful statistic for us to be running at that level, and it's just testament to all the hard work that's gone into the last 3 years, and it's nice to be up there punching with the heavyweights of Victorian racing.
Yeah. And Australian racing as well, Robbie, because with the stable return on investment, if you've backed our runners this season in every single race, you'd be 36% in the profit, which is better than any trainer that's had more than 30 runners.
Well, that's good to know. So
across the whole country.
Your TAB account would be healthy then.
No, because I listen to your tips rather than back every horse. So
boom, just give it to me there. No, it is, reiterating what Matt said, that all ideas and plans and structures and future proofing and all that sort of stuff need funding, and we can't do it without our owners. So it's been a big team effort, and we think that as much as success as we'll have this season, we think the next season will continue to grow, because when you're buying beautiful horses like this one in front of you in the Blue Point and the Pirata filly, and the list goes on and on and on, it's going to give you a chance to be competitive, because these are really, really top quality horses.
Yeah, and it's the second crop that's really starting to hit the track now. Is that right, Matt? So it was a 3-year sort of plan originally.
The first crop is Aberfeldy Boys age, 4 years old, and the second crop now is Akasita, Sirasana, Verdad, and Shuto, and then this guy in front of you here is the third crop. So it's our third season of buying.
Yeah, which is pretty exciting. And Robbie, I guess going into the spring, last year I think we had around 15 runners for the spring carnival. What are the ambitions? I mean, obviously the Melbourne Cup's a pretty lofty ambition, but with some of the young horses that are hitting the track, say somebody like Ray Magnerio, who a month and a half ago had never seen the track and hadn't really shown a lot in trials, and then he comes on and wins 2 in a row. Like, how many of those types of horses do you envisage would just pop up at this time of year now that they're maturing?
Probably more so in the 3-year-old brigade, because as Matt said, it's only our third real season, and we didn't buy as many year 1 as year 2 and year 3. And overall, this year we've probably got more horses of substantial strength, which we spend a little bit more per horse to get, like the ones in front of you now. So we think that we'll have, the long answer is we think we'll have more runners each and every spring. What's going to determine the volume of runners this year will be the maturity of the horses, the individuals themselves. Like Akasita, we were really confident of being in the Guineas and performing very well, and he's had 2 runs and has to go back to the paddock. So when you get those, Mother Nature steps in and can change your plans a bit. So if Injuto and Verdad and horses like that come to the fore, Liberani, Magic Mogul, there's Autumn Storm and unraced Autumn Sun horse that we did trial really well at Werribee. If those horses are mature enough, they could all of a sudden line up during Cup week, and we could have a really good week. So it very much depends on that. Ray Magnerio is heading towards finals day. There's a benchmark 80 worth a bit of money, so we're going to put him in the series there and give him a look around at Flemington Sunday, because a lot of horses need that one run there. So there's a few young horses, as you say, Corey, that could just pop out of the blue there and really make the spring exciting.
It's unlike you to have a Magnus pop up out of nowhere.
True.
Matt, just with that, obviously we've still got a couple of shares in some of our 2-year-olds, but it seems that
there's none in the Blue Point though, is there?
There's a little bit in the Blue Point. There's a little bit in the Exceedance. There's a little bit in the Pirata out of Shakespearean Lass. And there's a little bit in the Fastnet Rock. So 4 absolute belters. So
what are you doing, Corey? There shouldn't be any shares. The hottest size, size and the most proven size. What are you doing?
Sometimes you scratch your head. I don't understand. So the Exceedance is the interesting one for me, Robbie, because you bought a press statement out of the blue and put your name and put yourself behind it and said this thing will be a runner, and it turned out to be Daily Bugle. You put yourself behind $300,000 grunt, turned out to be Akachita. Yep. And then this one was this sale season where everyone said, what do you think you'll go to? And you said, whatever I have to buy him.
True. I think that, thanks for that, because I think that, as Matt and I know only too well, and sometimes when you're always preaching it, you sort of feel as though it's the same story. But when you see a horse with this quality, you just want to have him in the yard. So all stallions get get a good horse, but some stands get a lot more. So when you I can't see why Exceedance wouldn't do really well. But the thing about this bloke is he's just like Glenfiddich. I know everyone's heard me say that, but he was a Group 1 horse, and should have probably won when we had him in the Champagne Stakes. He got beat a whisker, and this horse is just like him. So I think you can really blow the budgets when you see quality. It's like Akasita. He was coming home. We were trying to buy him out of the paddock, so he was always going to come home to Cranbourne. And I think when you do that, very rarely is your faith not rewarded. So I think that'll be the same in this case.
Yeah. And you're right about every stallion gets a good one. I mean, look at Mr. Brightside. He's by Bull Bars.
There you go. They all get them. It's just that the Frankels gets 25%, and Bell Esprit with Black Caviar, I think he had something like 3%, and then you got other stands at 5 and 7%. So these are all the stats that we do when we look at buying horses. We don't just buy the shiny one that everyone sees. There's a lot of work that goes into it, from the genetics to the performances of the stands, the mares, and there's a little bit of insider trading when you buy a horse like this, because we trained the mother and we knew how fast she was, and we knew how related she was to Glenfiddich. So it's a young family with quality. So, and the same with Akasita, we trained Fidelia, so the sister's little Indian. So the family and the quality, and then when you see them present in that physical manner, it makes success a lot easier.
Yeah. And Matt, the 4 that I mentioned before, this guy at Blue Point, the Piarata and the Fastnet Rock, they're all actually in pre-training at the moment. They've all been broken in. They've all had a couple of preps. They're all pre-training.
Fastnet had a gallop Saturday morning and straight up 12.5 easy on the bridle,
Really, yeah. So so they're almost ready, these horses. So the ready to run sales are coming up around the corner. So horses like, say, Verdad that we bought from the ready to runs, he's only kicked off his career now. So ultimately, these horses that are coming through the system and are at the pre-trainers now are effectively ready to run horses.
Yeah, if you're going to be purchasing them now, yeah, for sure. They've all broken in well. And like Robbie said, the Fastnet Rock's actually had his first sprint up on the weekend. So they're quite advanced. And I think it's a good time to get in because, they've stood the test of time for the first phase, which is good.
And we often buy at the yearling sales, but we also have been looking for an import, and we've been looking for 3 years since Matt started. We've been looking for one. We looked at a couple, and we've said no to a lot. That'd be fair to say, wouldn't it, Robbie? We've said no to quite a few. Mike's been looking for us as well, and Matt, I might get you to touch on this boy that we've managed to secure.
Yeah, Corey, obviously it's a very exciting project, and we've managed to secure him. He's trained by Dermot Wild in Ireland and owned by a lady who owns a stud farm, and she felt that he wasn't going to fit her project of him being a stallion there. So through a connection of ours who rides track work and he's ridden in Dubai, ridden for Godolphin, Ted Durkin, Group 1 winning jockey. Him and my old man stayed close, and this is the first horse he's ever put up to us, and we've been asking him for 2 years to give us a horse. So he's put his name to this horse, Ted Durkin, and he said this is the right horse for Australia. As you can see there, he's a very consistent horse. He's in the first 3. He's got a fantastic acceleration, and the most exciting thing is that he's by Frankel. And as Robbie said earlier, Frankel's probably the world's best sire at this stage, and he's still a colt. So we think this is a buy of all buys, and we're very excited to be bringing him to Australia and offering him to all our loyal clients. And he beat a horse in the maidens called Cuban Dawn. You'll see in the writing just below there that Cuban Dawn ran second to him in the maidens, and Gay and Adrian actually purchased that horse. So hopefully we're on the right path because they've got a fantastic pedigree with regards to buying raced horses, and so we've managed to secure this horse who actually beat Cuban Dawn. And then there was a horse that ran just in front of him, which was giving way to in a handicap at the Curragh that went and run in successfully in a Group 1 in America. So a lot of good form around him, and what I like about his racing style is he's got a very, very good turn of foot. So he's not one of those slow dour English horses. So with his stamina and his pedigree, he's still got a very, very good turn of foot as well.
Yeah. He has quite a similar profile to that horse Sabark that ran next to Aberfeldy Boy on the weekend and ran in those $2 million races and came second in the $5 million race, the Five Diamonds or whatever it was called in Sydney. So he's the type of horse that could run in all of those big pop-up races. Things like the Golden Eagle obviously would be the next year's target if he progressed like you think he might. And then Cox Plates and those sorts of, well, we can all dream, obviously. So this is what Ted Durkin actually said. So he said, since my first venture with Mike, I've been very mindful to try and get a horse that fits the brief. I've spent 3 years looking, and this is the horse I landed on. I feel Nation's call, we've landed the right one. Fiona is a very open and transparent person to deal with. So when I approached her to try and buy him after he won at Gowran Park, she informed me that he was not for sale. On Dermot Weld, who was the trainer's advice, he was going to run at Cork last month, but then the rain came. And that's when Fiona decided he was probably not going to be a stallion for them in the Northern Hemisphere, and that he would be for sale and we could throw our hat in the ring. What caught Ted's eye was the ease for the horse to travel and its nice turn of foot. A good surface would be a massive plus, which he will get in Australia. His dam was a stakes-winning filly, winning over 7 and 8 furlongs. She had a top rating of 112. And obviously, if you mix that with Frankel, can't really go wrong. So, Robbie, your experience over the years, it's these lighter raced, progressive types that come out here and do the best.
Yeah, well, I think that the recommendation was exactly what Matt and I have seen in the videos, that he's a horse with a quick turn of speed, and predominantly those horses are better suited to Australia for the quick ground that we have, and our sit and sprint mentality of being very tactical, whereas you know, a lot of his skill set isn't used to advantage in Europe, you know. So he really should be the type of horse that adapts very, very well to Australia. And knowing that Frankel is the best sire in the world and his horses win everywhere and they've got a 25% stakes rate of winning in Australia, you would think that he really ticks the boxes to. And being only a one-win horse, he's got the rating to go through and win a lot of races on to way to any dream races. So he's a good buy.
Yeah, and arguably there was one that he came second in that I can't see how it was possible that he was second past the post. It looked like he'd won the race and somehow didn't win the race. So he probably could have a better record than he already has, which is great because we can take advantage of it. If anyone's online, if anyone wants sort of the inside scoop on that, he'll arrive on October the 2nd. Obviously, we just need to confirm the final price, which will be inclusive of bringing him out here, quarantine, the whole works, but it'll be somewhere between the 6 and 650 marker. And the other thing that I needed to mention, if you wanted to know details on all these races and everything else, I've got all of that. So if you just send me an email if you have any sort of interest, I can send you all those details in advance before he gets here, and then we can obviously start to finalise things when he's closer. But yeah, that's probably a good way to sort of finish off the main part. But do we have any questions from those participating? And Sarah Sana on screen there, Matt. When does she kick off?
Yeah, we were talking about it this morning, myself and Robbie. She trialled beautifully today, and looks like next weekend there's 3 races for her: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we'll probably pick one of them and kick her off. And we're hoping to stretch her out in distance and aim her at some of those nice 3-year-old fillies races. But she'll tell us, because this day at Sandown she was absolutely blistering, winning the 1,000 in 56 and 90 seconds. So yeah, she's got a lot of speed and looks a classy sort. So very excited.
Yep, the horse that's 4 lengths behind her actually won a stakes race as well.
Yeah, isn't that Ouroboros or
Ouroboros? Yeah, Ouroboros. So, right, some questions here. Ian Curry, what do you see the program, Robbie, for Magic Mogul?
He's a bit of a big goofy horse with a really good motor, and he should have won his first start on debut at Sandown, where he sort of got up in the air and lost it a little bit. And blinkers normally help those horses, and when they went on, he didn't know how to handle himself in the over race. So we thought that we wouldn't put him under too much pressure. We'll just go to a maiden soon. It won't be far away. It'll be somewhere in the next sort of 7 to 10 days, depending on what we think. There's one at Warrnambool coming up, 1,300, with all the Vobis trimmings. And then we'll just see how he handles himself on race day as to how quickly we go through the ranks. We've got hopes and aspirations that he can get to the back end of the carnival, maybe a cup week in a Carbine Club or Sandown Guineas. And if he happens to be, we want him in the latter part of the year because he's a Magic Millions horse. So with the carnival, ramping up to 10th of December in Melbourne, it'll give a nice lead into the New Year's week going into the Gold Coast because he's eligible for those big $1 million races, But
you just want to go up there early, Robbie.
Hey?
You just want to go up there early.
Exactly. I want to winter like Aberfeldy Boy come back with 6 weeks in fantastic order. Imagine what it'll do for me. But him and Autumn Storm Magic Millions horses. So if they're in the back end, it gives them a chance to take advantage of Melbourne and go into the Gold Coast,
Yep, and we don't. I mean, obviously, the Magic Millions Carnival it's a fair bit of getting to, like going up there. But it'd be great to have a couple of horses up there just for our owners to come and join us while we're racing and at the sale. It kicks off the sale season. Always an exciting time.
Yeah, well, we're hoping we can. Like we said before, young horses you can have all these plans and you wake up and they've got to go to the paddock because they're growing, but the horses that we're talking about have the substance to develop into that style of horse. So we're hoping that Mother Nature's kind enough to let those horses go through that pathway.
Hopefully it's not wet like last Magic Millions, because Magic Mogul certainly likes to dry.
Exactly. Yeah, we don't need it like that. It was a mess, wasn't it?
Binocular. Is he close to going to a trial? So just touching on a couple of obviously the guys that are online.
Yeah, he's not far away. He had some good sprints last week, and he's a big, heavy horse. That he's a brute, which is good. That'll help him on race day. But whilst his bones are developing, and you've got a lot of body mass, which is what you want in an athlete, it can be a bit soft on their bones. So you've got to stop and start a little bit. And he's had a few growing pains as he's developed, but he did go it really well last week. So we're hoping he's not far off trialling and then going to the races soon because he's a really nice horse. The Merchant Navies obviously just take a little bit of time,
And Matt, I noticed a trial this morning of Sacred Arrow, which is the arrogant colt that's bred pretty much like royalty. He's come out from America as a weanling, was it?
Yeah, we purchased him as a part of a package, 3-horse package. Stormy Gray, who's an Arrogate, they're all Arrogate. Stormy Gray, she's a winner, and she ran the Adelaide Oaks. And then Ariana Blue looks like she's ready to win her first maiden. And he had his very first ever jump out this morning, first time on the grass, and he was still soft with regards to his training heading towards it. It was just very educational, and we were very pleased with his exercise this morning. And he's just going to get much better with maturity, and all his data on the treadmill and heart rates and sectionals on the track when he's in his comfortable environment in the morning are very good. So there's lots to look forward to there.
Yep, and I've just got a couple here asking about their horses, but I might go for this one. Actually, I'll answer those first. So Verdad's likely next start, Robbie. He was very impressive on debut.
Yeah, Matt and I were going through his program this morning, and we're going to nominate for the Bill Stud on the 29th, but realistically, he'll go to Sandown on the 1st of October. I think is the Sunday meeting there or Saturday meeting at Sandown. And that'll give him a chance if he wins in the style that he won in on debut, he can then run his way into the Guineas. And if he's not up to that level, he can go to the Wednesday at Caulfield into the 2,000 metre race at Caulfield, and that leads into the Derby. So we've got an A plan, an A+ plan, and an A plan depending on which way he goes. But yeah, he pulled up really, really well from his win. So we're looking forward to his next start.
Yeah, and Matt, I thought you sort of was like Clark Kent going into a phone box. Then you tapped your ear and you disappeared.
Yeah, I had a bit of a technical difficulty, Corey. I tapped my ear and next thing I was gone from the webinar. So
I thought you might not have wanted to answer the question. So, what's your opinion
yeah,
of
it's
she's
not a
brutal?
not a bad way out. No, she's Brutal's a lovely filly, and I'm quite excited to work with the Brutals. We got a couple, so looking forward to it. They look like strong horses, a lot of substance. So I'm sure they're going to handle their 2-year-old careers very well.
And Steve Frankel's just asked this question, and Steve would be pretty excited with his first winner a couple of weeks ago. But Beyond Ready, his next race should be fairly soon, I imagine.
Yeah, well, obviously he was very impressive the other day. Actually, the maiden win was quicker than the 64 on the same day, and he was pretty soft for that run. He'll make improvements. We haven't nailed his next start down just yet. We wanted to give him time after the long journey up to Wodonga. It was a fair way to travel, so he just had a real easy week last week, and he'll do a bit of work in the morning tomorrow. And once he comes through that, then we'll be able to map out a plan for him. But it'll probably be a low grade handicap somewhere and try and keep his confidence up.
And I've got lots coming in for people's horses, but obviously with the spring coming up, Robbie, that's the positive is we have so many good horses going into the spring. The negative is that it's a whole lot more interviews and questions about where those horses are going. So I might ask you a different question here from Craig Miguel. He's just said, who do you see as your main jockey group going into the spring without giving too much away? Do you have certain jockeys that you would earmark for the spring, or do you pretty much pick them horses for courses?
A little bit of both. Jockeys are very hard to pin down because they're all they move around sort of everywhere and they get suspended and have multiple rides in one race and have to choose one and disappoint other owners and trainers and all sorts of things. So that'll very much depend on that whole. It's a fluid sort of situation, but Bo Mertens is keen to stay with Verdad. He won on him the other day, and I think it'd be hard to get Paddy Maloney off in judo the way his post-race report went. So, John McNeil's on Aberfeldy Boy. But this morning we had Jamie Mott on Hal Warson. I mean, Andrew Mann normally rides him, but whether he's committed in Queensland. The good thing about Victorian racing, there's so many good riders. The Lanes, Zazaras, Ollie's having his last year before he retires, and that's only mentioned in a few. So the good thing about Victorian racing, you could throw the colours in, and if any one of quite a few walked out in them, you'd be pretty happy. We'd like to keep the same riders on the same horses, but for those reasons, it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah. And have you ever used the international riders, Frankie Dettori, Oisin Murphy, Holly Doyle's, Tom Marquand's? Would you use those types, or do you prefer to have the locals on if you have a preference, or is it really just whoever's available in the race and the best jockey?
I think the A-list jockeys around the world adapt to whatever horse they're put on, So, that's why, J Mac comes down from Sydney. He hasn't been on your horse before. He'll still ride the horse, 12 out of 10. And the same applies with Joe Moreira and Frankie Dettori and all the greats that have come over here throughout the years. And, it'd be good to have them on just because you don't get to have that opportunity very often. So if Ocean Murphy and all those sort of guys come out, it'd be good to utilise them. Ryan Moore just wins on anything. So anyway, we'll just see how it plays out. But we're very lucky that we've got a lot of great jockeys in our own backyard too.
Yeah. And Tony Gizalia just asked about Zoo Rain, but I'm not sure. I'm just going to pin Tony, call him out here. He's actually in the ownership of Ensudo. So he's had his first winner this week and he's already asking about his next one.
Doesn't take long. Then Zoo Rain's he's a nice horse that he's just going to start speeding up now, but he's a brute of a horse. He's a bloody beauty, Well, we like the Zoo Sains, and the filly's shaping up quite quickly, and he's a little bit behind doing that work, but he's very strong, and we like what we see there.
Yeah, he's got Qatar bloodstock in the ownership too. But anyway, I'll let Tony know that we'll give him more info if he buys another share in one of the 2-year-olds.
That's it.
Anyway, we might wind it up there, guys. Thanks very much for those that joined us. And Robbie and Matt, thank you, and good luck for the spring.
Thanks, Corey.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for everyone for supporting.
Thanks, everyone.